anything here? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'll just start us off here with a little intro, and we can take it from there. So yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Em Ironstar, and I'm the new-ish Executive Director of the Saskatchewan Arts Alliance. I've been in this role now for about 7 months. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a white mid-30s non-binary person with short brown hair, brown Wayfarer glasses, and I'm wearing a green camouflage shirt. So for those of you who might be joining us and might not know a lot about the Saskatchewan Arts Alliance or the SAA, we're a nonpartisan, member-driven coalition of arts organizations that provides a collective voice for the arts community to the public, government, and arts and culture agencies. We work to strengthen, support, and advance the arts ecosystem through advocacy, public education, research, policy development, and proactive leadership. So first off, we just have a couple of housekeeping items to address. So we're really thankful to have Barb and Sue today here with us from the Saskatchewan Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, who are joining to provide ASL interpretation services. So because of this, we just ask that you keep your video off unless you're speaking, and that's just going to allow us to facilitate spotlighting the speakers and interpreters so it's working well during the live event and also with the recording. And we've also enabled auto transcription, and you can toggle this feature on and off at the bottom using the controls at the bottom of the screen. If you're having any technical difficulties, please just let us know in the chat and we'll do our best to assist you. As I kind of alluded to already, this event is going to be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. So just keep yourself muted unless you're speaking or asking a question. That just kind of helps eliminate some of the background noise. We do welcome questions. Just type them in the chat and we'll get those moderated and up there for you. And feel free to share your name and where you're from in the chat. And if you're comfortable, list your preferred pronouns behind your participant name. So before I acknowledge the lands in which we're on, I'd like to start by acknowledging that I inhabit this land as a settler. And as a settler, I recognize that I've benefited from colonization and stolen land, and that colonization has and continues to disrupt Indigenous well-being. We acknowledge the people that came before us on this land and all of the knowledge that has been passed down since time immemorial. This land has been called home by Indigenous people. By honoring the land, we acknowledge the teachings and wisdom gained by people's past, and bring that knowledge into the present and future. And today I'm speaking to you from Treaty 4 territory here in Regina, which is the traditional lands of the Saulteaux, Cree, Dakota, Lakota, and Lakota people, as well as the homeland of the Métis. And as a provincial organization, the work of the SAA reaches lands covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. I'd also like to take a quick moment to thank our funders, Sask Culture and Sask Arts, both of whom benefit from lottery ticket sales through Sask Lotteries. So this is just a reminder that everyone wins with Sask Lotteries. Proceeds from Sask Lotteries fund cultural organizations all across the province like ours, and we wouldn't be able to do the work we do without this support. We are so excited for today's event, The View Forward COVID Visions Live. It was inspired by the SAA's online series, COVID Visions, which was created and written by today's moderator, Stephen Ross Smith. And we encourage you to check out all of the articles in the series and read about Saskatchewan artists and arts organizations facing the strange reality of COVID-19 past and present. This series can be found on our website, and we will put that link in the chat for you. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to our moderator and host, Stephen Ross Smith. Stephen has published poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, and he's known for his 7-book poetic exploration, Fluttertongue. He is also an arts journalist specializing in literary and visual arts, and over many decades, he's been effective as a literary activist on behalf of writers, speaking, teaching, organizing, blogging, editing, and presenting. So over to you, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Em. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased that you've joined us for this glimpse into the past and future effect of COVID on the arts in Saskatchewan through the eyes of 3 Saskatchewan creators, poet Louise Halfe, theater director Angus Ferguson, and visual artist Laureen Marchand. Each of these artists wears more than one hat, and so I will invite them each to tell us where they're speaking from, a bit about themselves, and then we'll have a conversation. I invite viewers too to use the chat function and forward any questions you might have for the participants or for me. We'll do our best to make sure we have time to address some of those toward the end, or if pertinent, right smack in the middle somewhere. So to lead us off with a bit of introduction and knowledge of themselves rather than me summarizing, I'd like to ask each of you to do that, to introduce yourself, where you're speaking from, and a bit about your artistic role today. So maybe can we start with Louise?
Kanaskomten Stephen ben tumino takapikskoyan egwa nichatuge etaguhtetse kapetutage ninaskoman. I thank you so much, Stephen, for the invite. It's so exciting to see other artists. I love the different art genres and can hardly wait to learn more about Laureen's art and to go to theater again where Angus is situated. I always speak Cree at every introduction right across Canada. And it's just to point out that in a gentle way that we were here first. And don't forget that. And so I really appreciate what Elm had to say about the land acknowledgement. It was so thorough. It was so great. I am on the prairie among rolling hills. I live in a straw bale house in Saskatchewan. I won't give you our number. I want anybody to find me. I'm too busy already. Thank you very much. And I don't have any pronouns. In my language, we have no pronouns. We are just beings and like in a state of being mindfulness. So I just look at the pronouns. I go, oh, what? You guys are just human beings. Anyway, that's my issue. But yeah, so that's me. And my parliamentary role, I produce a vast number of new poetry that's taken me out of my usual historical jaunt of my community. And it's been a lot of fun because it has stretched me, and I get all kinds of requests, not only through Parliament, and I can't charge for those, but any other requests outside of Parliament in my ordinary writing life, I'm able to send them an invoice. So that's pretty good. I'm super, super busy, not only with that particular role, but I'm very active in my community, not only in ceremonies, but I don't like this term elder, but that's what I'm perceived. And so I function that way. And I've been really stressed out a couple times this spring and to date, just because my plate is always so full. But, you know, on the whole, I don't mind. I don't mind being busy, but I don't have time to house clean. If you see a mess back there, that's the way it is. No apology. So that's me. And lovely to meet everybody. And eventually what I'll do is read you a poem that I read to the municipalities right across Canada. It was an international conference, so there was hundreds and hundreds of audience, and I was specifically asked to write about municipal parks and whatnot. So that's what I will read eventually. Thank you. Hi.
That's wild commissions. That is what we decided on the format is that we would just show a few images for each of the three conversationalists here after their brief introduction. So Louise, we in a minute we'll pull up three images that you've sent me. Maybe they're coming now. And I wonder if you could maybe just briefly speak about it, just say, identify each one. And then when they're done, please read us your poem.
Oh, what's at the top? Oh, the medals. I haven't had an inauguration for the parliamentary poet, and I'm the 9th one because of COVID. And I'm not I'm okay with that. However, the 10th one will be announced sometime later this year. And that's when they'll say Louise served as the 9th parliamentary poet of Canada.
Don't forget the term laureate. Yes, and I didn't say that you were the parliamentary appointed parliamentary poet laureate for Canada right now. So there, I've said that.
Oh,
Carry
thank
on.
you.
Sorry.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Steve. And the dress that you see up there, the beaded dress, is for the missing and murdered Aboriginal women. It was a gift that was given to me. And I actually had the medal with my name engraved on the other side of it, because they didn't do that. So I took it and they paid for it. That's the one image.
Okay. Yeah.
Awasis, Kinky and Disheveled is my latest text. And Awasis means two things. Most people know it as a child, the little child, but the real meaning behind it is the spirit that we've been loaned with. And Awasis is a character that I developed for this particular text because she's a naughty girl and a naughty boy that lives inside all of us as adults. And what I did with this particular text was I went to both mainstream and the Native community to ask them what was the most embarrassing thing that happened in their lives that they couldn't share. And so I created Awasis to share their stories, and naturally some of it is mine, but it was a lot of fun writing these books, and who knows what will come out of it.
We can see another book, I believe, here. Yeah.
Yeah. Blue Marrow was republished after Cato sadly went bankrupt. I really miss them because they were really, really good to me. And it's a continuous production by Kegano's Press, and I really love their image.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So there are a couple of covers from Louise's books. She has more, but we just thought we would show a couple there. And congratulations, by the way, on the medal and the appointment that you have.
Thank you, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot the poem. Did you want me to read the poem?
Please read the poem.
Sorry, I forgot too.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the one that I produced for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Policy and Public Affairs. It's called The Landscape of the Heart. Sometimes the heart's dam wants to spill the overflow and flood its constrictions. This is when one needs to walk the Meewaston Trail, the Wascana Park, somewhere to listen to the magpies, sparrows, geese, and doves, to watch the wind excite the trees while the orange splash of orioles display their brilliance, to watch the swell of deep clouds move gently across the heavens, to smell the earth's fresh rain. We need the solitude of the parks to be at peace, to watch strangers walk hand in hand, catch snippets of their stories, laughter or tears, to picnic with our families, maybe throw sunflower seeds or bannock to strutting pigeons. I think of the crowded masses walking the concrete highway, where dandelions poke alone through the cracks, where caged birds may be surrounded by hungry souls wanting a bit of wild. And still I am privileged to inhale the cherry blossoms, mock orange, purple lilacs, the spruce and pine, these ancient spirits breathing for all the earth. I want this for the frozen eyelids, the bruised hearts, the deaf ears. I want dirty fingernails rimmed with soil, connected to the heart and soul, to remember we all once collected pebbles. These small heart concretions that attach themselves to our hearts. Sometimes we find this place in a simple walk through the park. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks. Thanks, Louise. Angus, I wonder if you can tell us a bit about yourself and your work, where you're speaking from, your roles, etc.
Sure. Thank you, Louise. I think we should have poems at every Zoom meeting and panel discussion. I think that's a great idea. Great way to start things. My name is Angus Ferguson. My pronouns are he and him, though I think the idea of getting rid of pronouns in English is probably the best idea I've heard all day. I think that'd be a great idea. I live in a small village called Meacham. It's in Treaty 6 territory, traditional homeland of the Métis. It's in what's called the pothole region of the prairie, which is, it's not very flat here at all. There's lots of hills, lots of sloughs, lots of, a lot more trees. I'm actually only about 20 miles away from Louise, so we're in similar landscape and terrain. I founded and run Dancing Sky Theatre, which, yes, is in a village of 80 people. We're a bit weird as far as the rural theatres go, because we do all Canadian work and mostly new work. So we develop a lot of new plays. So I'm the artistic director now, and director, designer. I'm a dramaturge. I love working with playwrights, developing new work. I'm a teacher because I always think, well, two reasons. One, I think the joy is watching students that you taught become part of the theatre community, working with them. And also I find it's a really good practice to try and articulate how you do what you do, because half the time I don't know how I do what I do. So to have to explain it to somebody else is a really productive thing. So yeah, I think that's probably all I need to know. Yeah, I'm a theatre artist. I've lived in Saskatchewan. Well, I'm an immigrant. I was born in England. I came here when I was 15 years old because my parents moved here. And I lived briefly in Montreal, but returned to Saskatchewan because my wife and I decided we wanted to live in the country. And there wasn't much country near Montreal, but there's lots of country here. So that's why we came back.
Thank you. Well, we do have a couple of images, Angus, from your establishment, which maybe you can just, when they pop up, you can tell us a bit about what you see there.
That's a view of the front of Dancing Sky Theatre. Dancing Sky was started, we did children's theatre and touring theatre when we first started. We would play ball diamonds, reserves, community halls, but we found our own space. I guess it's about 25 years ago now. It was the old Ukrainian hall. The building we now call home is over 100 years old. It was built by the Orthodox Ukrainian community here. It's part of the little church, which you can't see from this view, is up on the hill. It's the second oldest Orthodox church in the province. And it's, yeah, it's a good to see a picture of it because we're used to theaters being in urban settings with lots of buildings around them. Ours is on the very edge of town. So the way you're looking straight west into the sunset and there's nothing for miles. So it's an unusual theater building.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And we have a couple of inside shots here.
The shot on the left is from a thing we did called The Food Show, which was a collective creation. That's Jamie Lee Schabelsky. We did a show about how food is made and the value we place on food. So it was an exploration of food and how we expect to consume it and how we produce it. The view on the right is our dining room. Most of the people who come visit Dancing Sky travel a great distance because, you know, we can fit everybody in the village in the theater and still have some chairs free. But we do 15 performances of each show. So there is no restaurant in town. So we decided to offer meals. We only serve 50 meals, although we can seat 100 people in the theater. But the act of eating together and sharing a drink together and is central to what we do. A theater is a communal community art form. So we can't do this now with COVID, which we'll come to later, but we used to see people that didn't know each other at the same table, which they were a bit taken aback with at first. But often they became friends and ended up making dates to come back to the theater together. So the dining room is sort of central to what we do, it's not really on the periphery.
Right.
During COVID, one of our response to COVID was to do work outside, which we hadn't done for years. We have done outside work. Back in 2005, we did a collective creation called Wakotowin, with Maria Campbell and Trevor Harriott. But most of our recent work has been inside. So we decided, since our space is very cramped, that it became obvious we weren't going to be able to be inside. So we built an amphitheater outside, and we started doing some storytelling, fireside stories, and created an outdoor piece. So that's a view of our little outdoor amphitheater. And now we're trying to figure out how we could afford to do indoor shows and outdoor shows.
Lovely. Yes. It's a great facility. I've been there myself and enjoyed productions there. So yeah, we invite everybody to do the same. Okay, thank you. Laureen, I wonder if you can tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Steve. And thanks to you and the Arts Alliance for inviting me along today. It's a real pleasure. I'm Laureen Marchand. I'm a painter. I think it's the reason I was put on the planet, is to make pictures. My full resume looks like the kind of thing you used to find on the back of inexpensive detective story novels. I've done almost everything. If someone offers me a contract and a check, I've done all of it. But the core of everything for me happens in my studio. In addition to making the pictures, I'm an artist. I mentor other artists. I teach workshops on the business of art. I sometimes occasionally teach studio workshops, and most recently, late last summer, I launched Grasslands Gallery Online, which is an entirely online art gallery representing some of Saskatchewan's most interesting artists. There are currently 14. The gallery hosts not only artwork that you can see individual images of, but also virtual exhibitions. And as this Saturday is Saskatchewan Art Gallery Day in the province, the gallery is also hosting artist talks and studio tours. And because it's an online gallery, everything happens on video. So I invite you to go there. It's grasslandsgallery.com and have a look. As far as my Grasslands Gallery Online has taken more precedence in my working life over the last 6 months than I kind of thought it was going to. But the paintings I make remain at the core of everything else. If they're not there, nothing else works very well. I've got a exhibiting career of almost 40 years and almost 50 exhibitions, both solo and two-person and group. And I'm currently working towards a proposal for another two-person exhibition. So I think that's me.
Okay, well, let's see a couple of images then from your practice.
This is a painting called A Spill of Light. It's 22 inches by 28 inches. It's oil on panel. My current work builds on my feeling that we can't decide that one part of our human lives is more important than the others, because if we do, everything fractures. We've tended to think in Western developed culture that what we buy and what we own is most important. And we've gotten into terrible troubles because of it. So what I'm trying to do in this work is bring together all the parts of our experience, which include the natural world, um, and our own interior worlds. And my hope is that I can remind people that we need all of them. I've worked all my art career on a feeling that if I can paint something so it looks most like itself, then I can help the viewer see not only the object, but themselves in the object. And I hope I can draw them into the world of light in all its forms and how important it is. So that's that one. This is a screenshot from my online art gallery. You can see little slivers of all of the artists' work there. And the current version of the gallery has a line across it that says Saskatchewan Art Gallery Day, and you can go directly there as well and find out what's going on for that week. Oh, also I should say that if you subscribe to the gallery mailing list this week, you can get entered into a chance to win a $500 gift certificate that is redeemable at any participating commercial art gallery in the province. But of course, if you win it, I'd like you to spend it with my gallery. Thank you. That's the commercial.
Oh.
That might have been my mistake there. I might have put one of the images twice. My apologies for that.
You have the other one? Or?
I do. Let me just bring it up here. Sorry, just give me a second here.
I don't think it's possible to host any kind of technological meeting without something happening. So if that's it, you're good.
Yeah, if we can come to it later as well.
Sure, we can move on.
Yeah, okay. We'll
Thanks
move
for your
on.
patience.
We'll be happy to see an image that isn't one of our faces after a while. Okay, so I mean, you've given us a bit of an idea, so I don't know how much detail we might need for this question, but my next question was, what is the most current artistic project you're working on? You've maybe given us a bit of taste, but what are you up to right now, Angus?
We have just finished our first indoor show in 2 years. Our response to COVID, well, we used the time to create more space because our theater and our dining room were very, very cramped. And we realized that one of the effects COVID would have is that seating strangers at the same table in very cramped conditions wasn't going to be working anymore. And even inside our theater, people were very close together. So we did 3 outdoor events, which I resisted very strongly the idea of doing digital work. There was a big push for theaters to create digital work. We have people that do that already. They make television and movies and they do it way better than I would ever do it. And I believe that what I create is community events, communal events. So I was always trying to find ways of getting people to gather together. It's a very important thing for human beings to come together, and we do it less and less and less these days. So we did 3 outdoor events. We came to our first indoor event. We did it with limited seating, both in the dining room and in the theater. It sold really, really well. Which proved to me what I suspected, which was that people were aching to get back together in any way they could. Right now, in 2 weeks, week and a half, we're hosting the Meacham Show and Shine, believe it or not. This was something that used to be done by the Historical Society, and it was going to stop. But we decided to take it over to keep it going. I mean, I believe any event where we gather together is theater of some kind. So we've kind of tried to build a bridge. It's still guys bringing fancy cars and staring under hoods, but we've added puppet shows and music and decorations and history. So we're trying to create a community event which will sort of build bridges between the agricultural community, the younger community, the artistic community. So that's what we're working on right now, a new venture for us, a big outdoor show and shine event where people will eat, drink, meet, listen to music, and watch theater in our little space. So it's on Father's Day.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I guess they'll be looking at cars too, eh?
Well, the guys lift the hoods of cars, scratch their butts and stare inside and hum and haw and talk about things which I don't understand. So we're trying to do things that other people who, I mean, I like cars. They get me from place to place, but I just, that's about it as far as I go. As long as the key turns and they start and go, then that's as far as my knowledge takes me. But yes, we'll be looking inside cars, shiny ones.
Yeah. Nice. Yes. Laureen, what are you working on?
I'm continuing to work on the project that brings interior and exterior experience together, with the goal of a two-person exhibition with the artist Catherine McCauley that we hope will tour starting sometime in 2023. I also continually produce work for commercial galleries, Nouveau Gallery in Regina, and my own Grasslands Gallery online. The work doesn't vary in appearance a lot between the public gallery work and the private gallery work, the commercial gallery work. I've actually never had any idea. I've never had the tiniest idea what might sell before I make it. So there's no point in me trying to produce a saleable product. I don't know what one is.
Right. Lovely product nonetheless. Louise, what are you working on? I know you've got many balls in the air. What's really the work of your heart right now?
There's a couple things. I want you to put, well, three things actually. I have several conference essays, about 17 of them, that I want to put together. And I also want to take my parliamentary poems and publish them. They've all been translated to French, English, and Cree. And another project that I'm interested in, I don't know when I'll get all this done, by the way, I haven't got any idea, is when I was in Germany last fall with Governor General Mary Simon, we were at an art gallery, and there was two things that really struck me there. Well, I think it was in Berlin. Was it Berlin or Frankfurt? One of those two places. Anyway, they took us to a basement, and in that basement was this long hallway filled with sculptured faces of infants to elderly people, of Jews who had been tortured, and just like layers of it. And they invited us to pick up one of those faces and walk to the crematorium, which was a black space at the end of the hallway. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I knelt there and I just wept and wept and wept. The other one that really struck me was there were banners from ceiling to the floor of all the policies held against the Jews. And I managed to take a few photographs of some of those policies, and I asked the curator if they wouldn't mind sending me a copy of them. So that within a couple of weeks, I received a text about that big. And so what I'd like to do with that text is compare it to the policies held against my people in this country, because they're very, very similar. So, and I don't want people to forget my history. You know, it's a gift for people to be on this continent. So I feel strongly about that, and how it'll evolve, I don't know. I've always got projects going. I'm writing all the time, but who knows where the writing will take me. I'm in for the ride. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really interesting to hear you know, these bits of background and the things that are attracting and compelling each of you now and taking your attention. I'd like to kind of waver a bit, looking back a little and looking forward at the COVID realities, the pandemic realities that we've faced. And we've heard lots of stories, of course, how the pandemic has affected everybody in many different ways. But if you can give a bit of background, a bit of idea of how it's affected your artistic practice, whether it be the, you know, the entrepreneurial part or the actual creative part, how COVID has affected your energy, your productivity, your receptivity, your psyche. You can take as long as you need to speak about this, and maybe we'll start with Laureen.
I think for me, it's been a roller coaster, sometimes a slow one and sometimes a really fast one. If I look back over 2 years, I remember feeling surprisingly serene about the whole thing, thinking that I guess we all thought maybe that this would be over sooner than it had turned out to be. And I felt quite adaptable. But that certainly changed as it wore on. And I think that one of the biggest things for me is that the amount of attention I started to pay to the news cycle changed sufficiently that it began to have an impact on my studio time. And I've really had to work to wrench my concentration back away from that particular external world into my world inside my studio. And there have been times when I've again felt on top of it and times when I've felt exhausted. I think in January of this year, it all kind of, the reality of everything was made clear at once, and I became so tired that I could hardly function. Changing from winter to spring certainly helps. I began the gallery partly in response to the fact that a lot of artists' work wasn't being seen because people weren't going to the places where you could see it. And partly because at the end of March 2021, Daryl Bell, who was someone who operated a gallery I had been with for a few years, he operated Daryl Bell Gallery in Saskatoon. He died suddenly and unexpectedly, leaving an enormous hole in the commercial gallery landscape in Saskatchewan. And it wasn't my intention to fill it, but those two factors of not artists having fewer places to show, I decided just to try and scratch a little hole in that blankness. So Daryl died at the end of March, and by May I had decided I was going to do this. I was very lucky to be able to get funding from Creative Saskatchewan to help me produce the website for the gallery. And that's mainly what I worked on from the summer. I decided I would put my studio practice aside for a month and build a gallery website. And then I launched it in late summer last year. Well, it's still taking more time than I thought it was going to. And I don't think I have anything final to say about what COVID did to my art practice, except that I remember feeling sometimes that it was just down and up and down and up, and sometimes it was hard to keep up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a very positive response to some parts of COVID, and a generous one too, to create a site where other artists could be represented as well. So, yeah. Very interesting. And Angus, what effect has COVID had on you?
Well, I mean, I work in theater, and theater is a community art form, so it is impossible to do on your own. Even a one-man show requires outside eyes and people in the room. Theater happens in that magical space between performers and listeners. So we were just going into rehearsal for a show when COVID and lockdown hit. So we had built sets. We had been developing a show with a Saskatchewan writer for 2 years, and we pulled the plug really fast, which in the end seemed the right thing to do. We paid people as much as we could and didn't perform the show. Our response. There was a lot of talk, I guess, in the theater world of sort of it ground to a halt, and everyone was sort of saying, well, we'll just wait until it can get back to normal. And I guess I was of the view that it was never going to get back to the normal that we knew. That's why we started exploring other ways of doing things, outdoor work. Are there other ways of creating theater, or are there other kinds of theatrical events? So to try and be creative in our response. There was certainly a strong feeling from our audience that they wanted to come back to the indoor shows. And even the show we just closed, we run for 3 weekends. So after the second weekend on the Monday, I got a call from our stage manager who was testing positive for COVID. We, on very short notice, found another stage manager, spent a couple of days getting her up to speed. She stepped in. We ran the show with her Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday morning, 3:30 in the morning. I woke up with a huge fever, sore throat, testing positive. I went down. The next day, the general manager went down. Fortunately, none of the actors. We had very carefully created space for the actors, and we had taken every precaution. I mean, we were wearing masks. We had shows where we were asking for proof of vaccination in some shows where we weren't. Our audience is largely rural, so there's been very little leadership and guidance from anywhere about how we're to respond in this mad rush back. So we got away with, I mean, we probably incurred a couple of $1,000s of extra expenses that we weren't expecting. If an actor had gone down, we would have had to cancel those shows and refund the tickets. So I guess if I'm boiling the whole experience down, I mean, I guess I'm really struck by the fragility of our art form. Full credit to the federal government. They came through very, very quickly with emergency money to arts institutions. And I'm pretty sure we would have lost half of them if that hadn't happened. We got enough money from the federal government to keep the doors open and pay the bills. There is no way we would have lasted 2 years without that. There are some good things. I mean, the culture in theater was very much, you're either dead or you go on and do the show, which is not a very healthy way of approaching work. And I understand why it's that way. There is a lot more care now. You know, if somebody's feeling ill and somebody needs to take care of themselves, we all bend over backwards and try and find a way for them to take the time they need. However, we haven't solved the solution about how we're going to deal with that for Dancing Sky Theatre. If we cancel a weekend and lose 30% of our box office for that show, it just puts our budgets way out of whack. I mean, we've all performing arts organizations try and build a budget that's within a couple of dollars at the end of the season. You know, now if you're saying, well, we can get within 30%, but we don't really know what's going to happen. So the positive side is, yes, we're better at taking care of each other. We're better at creating space, thinking about those things. But we haven't really addressed how we're going to deal with this in the long run. You know, we can't hire extra actors for understudies. We can't. And we're in a culture where we need to have a budget that balances at the end of the year. Like, we don't have a cushion, and that emergency money saw us through, but you know, that's not going to be there in the coming year. So we're going into perhaps an exciting new way where we have to approach things and take care of people differently, but a very scary one, because we've got to come up with some real answers as to how we're going to take care of people in ways that we need to, but also make the bottom line, which has gotten narrower and narrower and smaller over the last 12 years. Our funding has stayed the same for 12 years, which is the same as having a 25% cut, really, with inflation. In fact, in the last year, even more. So I'm still working with the same set budgets I was working with 10 years ago, even though a slice of lumber now is 4 or 5 times what it was then. So yeah, it's frightening. It's exciting. We are the creative people, and we're supposed to be finding new ways, and we're supposed to be exploring the new possibilities of how we're gonna do it. So it's had a huge impact. It will continue to have a huge impact over the next little while. Not all of it bad, but we've certainly got to explore some serious answers to things.
Yeah, for sure. That puts it very, the fragility of it all. You put that very clearly. Thank you. Louise, COVID, your work, you were appointed parliamentary poet laureate, I believe, in sometime in the COVID was already underway, and yet you're supposed to carry out these national activities. How has the COVID thing affected you?
Like Laureen, it's been like this. And well, several ways actually. Like most of my work, and just recently I've just gotten out into the public eye in person, but most of my work has been on Zoom. So it has saved me the headache of airports and being tired. I mean, you know, traveling is hard on the body. It takes me longer to recoup. So I don't mind doing Zoom on a whole. I miss the one-to-one interaction, and when I'm doing Zoom, I prefer to have people on screen whose faces I can interact with. But it was a little bit difficult in terms of the losses that we've had in the Aboriginal writers community with Daniel David Moses, Lee Miracle, and Harold Johnson. And you know, that was hard because we couldn't do anything about it, and I didn't know how to send any. I'm not an astute email person or a computer person per se, so I found that really difficult. But the two things that I found really refreshing, besides producing new poetry for the various people, is I got to meet a lot of the senators and a lot of people online, and but it also allowed me to focus on some of my other passions, which is to read philosophy and psychology and sociology and all of those, you know, those dry subjects that most people hate, but I love those subjects. And in the last 4 years, Peter and I have been hiking with the Saskatchewan Folklore Society. So I've seen a lot of Saskatchewan by foot and camping, and it's just incredible what we have in this province. And I've met a lot of people some people who come from across Canada to join us on these walks. And they, you know, people walk for different reasons, some to meditate, and some to do resolutions, and some to come to terms with their settler identity. Me, I just love walking. So I can't focus on the history. I'd be too pissed off if I did. So I walk for the pure pleasure of it, and to meet these people. And because it's outdoors, we don't have a lot of one-to-one. We may walk together or by ourselves in solitude or as a group, and we picnic together, which is a lot of fun. So for me, it's been good that way. On the whole, it's not been too bad. I do miss personal intercourse, just because I think my social skills have suffered consequently. You know, I would love to have people out and have some food time with them and, you know, just good conversations. And Angus, I would love it if you suddenly put me on your email so I know what's happening at the theater, because I don't get that information. I don't even know where to access it. I haven't taken the time to find out. So if you can do that, I'd really appreciate it. So that's what COVID has done for me is, you know, and most of us are solitary people. So it's not as bad as those people who are extreme introverts, you know, yeah.
Right. Yes. Well, and I wonder on a an emotional level, a personal emotional level, how you're each feeling like right now, today, about tomorrow and the next day, and the few days before this, because we're in this unusual place. We were in this place last year, right around this time, thinking it's going to open up. We're gonna be good. We're gonna be safe, and we were proven to be not quite right about that. So how are you each feeling right now about, like I say, yesterday, today, and tomorrow? Maybe Louise, you want to start us off on that?
Well, I'm actually quite good. I have some leery thoughts about it. Like we went to see Jan Arden last night, and it TCU place was packed, and I had my mask on, and then I took it off because I want, you get hot in there, and I was uncomfortable with that kind of exposure. So I mean, I'm still trying to balance I haven't had COVID, thank God. I've had my four immunizations, and so far so good. I mean, we take a risk when we go out there, you know, we sanitize, you do all the necessary things to keep yourself healthy. And in particular, because all of us are in our 60s or 70s and, you know, our 80s, whatever, we have to be so much more careful. I know, you know, I've had my health issues that I've had to be mindful of, and it's slowed down our ceremonial life in terms of the sweat lodge and whatnot. But I mean, life goes on and you do the best you can. So I'm all right mostly, other than being stressed out because I don't have assistant. I don't think any of us do, but there you go.
Yeah, we're our own admin assistants
Yeah.
most of the time, I think.
Yeah.
Laureen, how are you feeling?
Spring is good. I don't think I said at the outset that I live in the village of Val-Marie in Southwest Saskatchewan, next to Grasslands National Park, which is an enormous open area that it's wonderful to walk in. You can't do it in the winter, any kind of snow at all, and you can't get in. And and also in the winter, it's hard to get out of Val-Marie because it's a long way to the next time, you know, it's 55 kilometers to the next tiny village, and an hour and a quarter altogether just with current and the wind howls. And there are days, sometimes weeks, when you have to really want to go because it isn't safe on the road. I love living here. I'm extremely good at isolation. I'm good at solitude. I love the fact that it's quiet and I can look out my window and see a few power poles and trees and sky and not much else. I personally don't think, like Angus, that everything is ever going to get back to what we thought of as normal. I think this is normal. I think there's a lot of denial. But I'm not sure that it affects my own artistic practice exactly, because I think as a visual artist, you never have a secure future. You can make the work, you can book the exhibition, but you don't ever know if anything is going to sell. You don't ever know if there'll be another exhibition after that. So I think about my own artistic practice, I kind of feel the way I always did, which is hopeful and despairing and excited and wondering if I'll ever get it right and starting over again.
Yeah, we're always starting over again, aren't we?
Yep.
Yeah. Angus, what does it look like from your perspective?
Well, on a very, very personal level, I'm exhausted. COVID, I mean, I had a lot of friends who had COVID and said it was sort of just like a cold. Mine wasn't. Mine was 2 weeks, and for 4 days I was in bed sick, like with fevers, chills, and it was gruesome. And I'm still, I mean, I'm better. I test negative. I don't have the sort of cough cold symptoms, but I'm very tired. I run out of steam towards the end of the day. I nap, which I've never been able to do before. So it's certainly taken its toll, and it's certainly taken toll in the worry of sort of, you make plans, you make budgets, and then something happens and you make different plans and different budgets, and living in that state of flux is different. On a personal level, yeah, spring makes all the difference. Me and Lou live outside in the summer. We have 4 acres and we garden, and we're outside, and suddenly the weight's lifted. But about the future, it's we're in the middle of a sea change in everything. The way we make food, the environment, the way we deal with cultures, language, gender. So for an artist, that's exciting. I mean, it's scary as hell, because that nice, comfortable way we knew how to work and knew how to do it is going. And COVID is sort of, in a way, it was the sort of jolt. It was the sort of thing that kicked us sideways and said, all those things you take for granted, they're not going to be there. And for me, it sort of feels like it's just, rather than going back, it's the first sort of kick sideways in whatever the new civilization we're going to build is, because it's coming. I mean, I'm an old guy now, but now my job, I guess, is to help whoever's going to help build it. So COVID, in a way, it feels to me like this little portend of what's going to happen in the future. The structures we thought, the things we assumed, the way, of course, we're going to be able to get together. Of course, I can drive this far. Of course, I can fly to see my relatives in England. Nope, none of that's a given anymore. And now we're dealing with how much food costs, and we're dealing with all kinds of things. And so I think we're at the beginning of a whole really kind of exciting change. It's got to be better than what we've had. So we're lucky to be part of it, I guess.
Well, yes, and hopefully the creative people can lead the way somehow. Yeah, it's a big topic, though. Well, you've mentioned kind of the emotional side. Maybe going to move to a degree to the practical side. When researching for this story and some previous ones, I stumbled on some statistics and found them quite intriguing. And that is the 2017 statistics that I saw, that in Canada, the direct economic impact of culture industries was $58.9 billion in 2017. And the thing that was really intriguing was to see that it outpaced the financial impact of agriculture and forestry, fishing and hunting, accommodation and food services, and sports industries. It was very hard to believe it even outpaced sports industries, but yet, in contrast to that, the artist's income is 44% of the average citizens. And you've alluded, Angus, to the fragility, the financial fragility, or the structural fragility that we're all dealing with. So how do you take news like that in the light of your contribution and expectations from your art, that we're always in this marginal zone? What does this mean to you, Angus? What is it? How do you take that information?
I don't know where the 58.9 billion went, because not a lot of it came this way. I don't think I think about that anymore. You know, I've been working in professional theater for over 40 years, and I think way back, you know, I'd look at those things and look at the how important it was, what economic impact it had, and we'd be writing letters to the government about it and talking, and all those facts are true, and we've said them about 4 million times in the 40 years I've been working, and it's made no difference to anything. So I've stopped stressing about that. Either people don't believe it or they don't care. Or I mean, they come, they want the theater, they want poetry, they want paintings, they want to be part of that. I think those of us that still do it, I mean, I feel very fortunate. I've made a living. I don't make a lot of money. I still don't make a lot of money, but I have a garden. I have a cat that loves me. So the rewards are, I mean, it's a cliche, but the reward, I don't know how to do anything else. I love what I do, and I wouldn't do anything else. I couldn't do anything else. So it's one of the effects of COVID is we have lost people. I know we've lost 3 or 4 very good actors who've left the business. It was fragile and on the line before. And they got other jobs during COVID and went, wait, this is way better, way more secure. But the facts about sort of all the statistics we've gone to the government with haven't made any difference. So I've stopped thinking about it. I do what I do. People want to come. People want to buy tickets. People value it. So I don't have an answer. I keep making what I make because it's the only thing I do. And as long as people want to listen, I'll keep doing it. But how to get them to value it in a monetary way, it's a very complicated argument. I mean, they value it, and its value isn't really monetary in the same way, you know, monetary value for food is a difficult thing to talk about. But yeah, as far as smacking my head against the brick wall of statistics and changing government funding, I've given up.
Interesting. Yes. Laureen, how do you relate to those statistics like that? What do you think about that?
Well, I don't remember a time when I wasn't aware that that was the case. And like Angus, I've stopped thinking about it. I think that oddly, during these last couple of years, I'm in better shape financially than I was before. One of the effects of COVID has been that when you can't see people anymore, or individuals and organizations work out other ways to get together. So I've been able to get work that I wouldn't have been able to get if I had had to do it in person. And I've been able to take training that I wouldn't have been able to take without driving before. Mm-hmm. And when you live out of the center, you can become invisible, which can affect your output, and it can affect your visibility and therefore your income. But when everybody can't, when even the people who live in the center can't be seen in it, it sort of creates a different way of thinking about what's possible. And I, as much as I hate to say, you know, the good things about COVID there are some good things, and that's one of them. It has readjusted people's expectations about what you are required to do. Turns out we're not required to do all those things that we were required to do before to make a living, to have a good life. Visual buying paintings is probably one of the first things people stop doing when times are tough. And I've certainly seen that as my commercial online gallery hasn't existed very long, but I've seen the roller coaster effect with it, as well as with my own reaction to COVID. Things go along pretty well for 2 or 3 months, and then there's the next slam in terms of an invasion of Ukraine, or the or a worldwide recession looming or something like that. And I can see the sales stop. And then people begin to get used to it and the sales go up again a little bit. And then so I've got that same thing happening. So I don't have any profound conclusions, except that I think this is where this valued and not quite valued work that we make, that's the way it is and probably the way it's going to stay.
Yeah, interesting. Louise, how do you, what do those kind of statistics and facts mean to you? How do they affect you, your attitude towards your work?
No doubt that artists are the lowest paid people in this country. And I worked with a senator, and what I did for that senator was, because I sat on a Woodcock jury for funding for artists who go apply once in a lifetime. And I got to see the dire conditions of some of those artists who were trying to make a living from their art. Like, it was bad. And so I drew on that knowledge with my understanding of the symphony and the ballet and theater and all this stuff. And I made 2 poems for her: the dire conditions of the artists in this country and a lack of payment for our services. And people are slow to pay when you provide that service. And the other was with the the point that I was making to the people who have art like myself, who can afford to buy art in a house, and who go to the theater, who go to the concerts, who go to the symphony, and who go to the musicals, Persephone. Those are generally wealthy people, the bourgeois people who can afford to do that. And yet they don't think we're contributing in a very rich way. And they forget the richness of what's hanging on their, their halls, what they're experiencing, the emotional output of what they're experiencing in the theater, or with Jan Arden or Persephone or stuff like that, And I'm still angry about it because we're not well paid. And yes, I got a stipend from as parliamentary poet laureate, and it's the most money I've ever made in my life, for the last 2 years. And it's not only that stipend, which is only 20, well, it's 20 grand a year. And the travel is only 3,000. I haven't even used that because I haven't gone to Ottawa. And administrative payment is only 1,000. I haven't used that because I can't get somebody to help me. And what's $1,000 for admin help? That's only a few hours. So, yeah. So what have been one of my dreams was try to bring poetry in a forefront on a national level, and I blame myself mostly because I don't have the astuteness to do technology. I don't know how to do Zoom. I put it out through a parliamentary website to try to get Aboriginal poets in particular, their material out there. And there was little response. They're not getting paid a whole lot. It's $100 for a poem if they're accepted. And so when I was in Regina this weekend and I was talking to the municipalities on a national level, I challenged them to put poetry in the cities and in the towns and to pay handsomely to the artists. I mean, why not? So I'm quite angry with people not valuing the art, not me so much as the art and the artists, and because it's just not fair that we work our little buns off and we get a few pennies at a time. And anyway, yeah. So I'm just striving. I'm just striving like everybody else. It's like I said, I am married, of course, and I live off the goods of my husband, but I'm a proud Native woman who had to work my ass off in the sugar beet fields, who never saw a penny of it when I was growing up and in residential school. So I'm enjoying the monies that I'm being paid at the moment, and I don't apologize for it, because damn it, we deserve it. Artists deserve it. Yeah.
Right on, right on. Yeah, and I think that's probably one reality for all of us, I would guess, is that we do have a good year or two now and again, like through 4 or 5 decades of working in this field. Yeah, we have that couple of really good years, and they're luxuries, and they kind of make us, I don't know, give us a bit of comfort for a while, but then, things settle down and we're back to whatever that other level is. But yeah, I guess we all have stories like that, but good on you, Louise. And I like the fact that you're trying to be an activist around it too. Yeah, I had a little button once. I think there was a time that buttons were being circulated around in Saskatchewan, said, "Has the artist been paid?" And I used to wear that proudly. Darn it, I can't find it anymore, but it's a good motto. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. I'm just thinking that I'm not reading the chat for various reasons. My chat screen is quite small, but I wondered if we might entertain if there are some questions from the people who are tuning in today, if we might respond to them. I did have a couple more questions on my list here, and I will come back to one of them. But Em or Jessica, are you looking at the chats? Do you see any questions that we might address?
I don't think there's been any questions that have come through yet on the chat. There was just some folks that had to step away that were giving praise to the panel. So thank you for that. And Wendy actually from Carfax asked us, they have some of the have the artist been paid buttons. So they're the folks to contact for those. But
hey, that's good. We'll get them to send one or get 5 to each of us here on the panel, and we can distribute them and wear them proudly. Yeah, I've got the chat up now here, so I'm just having a look to see if there's anything that jumps out that we might address. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, and they're even going to make new buttons too, by the way. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. A lot of the buttons got some comment here. So as well as being makers, and Louise, you alluded to this, we're also consumers of art. I think all of us like to purchase or go to or whatever. So as we said, spring is opening things up. There is a lot happening now. A lot of the theaters have been rejuvenated. There's music, it seems, all over the place. So as a consumer, what do you what's your next move of consumption, Laureen?
I am currently enjoying going out for coffee, which, if you don't live in Val-Marie, Saskatchewan, may not have as much impact as if you do. But my local museum, which is also, it's probably the most visited small museum in the province. It also has a coffee bar and an art gallery where I have a 2-person exhibition this summer. And it hasn't been open for 2 years. So in order to go out for coffee, I had to drive to Swift Current, which kind of takes the impulse level fun out of it. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm going out for coffee once in a while. It's not a big consumption. It's not very artistic, but it's a lovely environment nonetheless.
Well, it speaks to your need, even in a small community like Val-Marie, your need to get out, mix and mingle a bit, the things that kind of were taken away from us for such a long time.
Yeah. In the spring, I decided I needed a holiday. So a friend and I went west. We had 11 days and spent 6 of them driving. And it was absolutely fabulous. And my list of things that were important to me then were to go out for breakfast, to have dinner with friends, to see flowers, and to see the ocean. And those are the things that were inaccessible for 2 years, because there's no ocean here, and flowers only happen for a couple of months in the summer. And just to gather with people, it was absolutely lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Louise, well, you were out to hear Jan Arden last night. Do you have more plans for some and you said, interesting, you said you were nervous. I think a lot of us feel that now. We go out into public events or whatever, or classes or things, and like, should I wear my mask? Should I not wear my mask? Like, am I okay here? All of those things go through your mind when you're mixing it up, so to speak. Anyway, I'm interjecting here. What are you gonna consume next, Louise?
Well, that was a gift from my daughter for Peter and I for our 48th anniversary. So she bought the tickets. So we went because of her. But I am a big consumer of books. I love books, and I miss the artisan craft sales here in Saskatoon. I love going to Meacham to go and hang out at June's art studio, and and just drive down the road on Highway 5 to go for pizza at the gas station. And but consumerism, I suppose, because I'm a hiker and doing the West Coast Trail, I've been preparing. So I love being outdoors. I camp and do all those things, and I hope to get better at my canoe skills. I'm terrified of water because I'm a prairie woman. So it's a real treat to be able to do those things that I didn't grow up with, because for a lot of people it's a privilege. For me, it's a privilege now. So I'm enjoying every minute of it. Thank you.
Yeah. And Angus, I mean, are you rushing out to see some theater or some music? Are you actually going into the big smoke there, Saskatoon, or what's up?
With the price of gas, I can't afford to drive to Saskatoon anymore. No, we are big consumers of art, paintings, music, books. We do try and attend a lot of events. Our income, our income's gone down. I chose not to teach during COVID. I teach at the university and at St. Pete's, and I teach drama classes. And they were talking about putting drama classes online, and I thought that was the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. The idea of teaching people to speak in front of people and trust each other and work together, and doing that remotely was ridiculous in my view. So our income went down, and when your income goes down, you don't have as much money to spend. And my wife Lou is doing her master's now in visual arts, so she had a very lucrative job at SciAS teaching English as a second language, and she's chosen to give that up to work as full-time as an artist. So our disposable income that we might spend on art is now spending to fill a gas tank mostly, because living in rural Saskatchewan, you gotta drive anywhere. But I have been to the theater a couple of times. We've chosen to go to Nest Creek this summer because it's outdoors and we get to listen to a lot of music and hang around with a bunch of cool people outdoors. That gathering, I love going to rock concerts and getting all sweaty and leaping around with 20,000 other people, dancing and reaching a state of ecstatic oblivion. I don't know if I'll ever be in a big crowd and let loose in the way that I have done ever again. I don't know whether you can jump up and down with 20,000 other people without worrying. I don't know. So those kind of events, we might have to invent new ways of that sort of ecstatic, communal, big experience. So it'll be a while if we ever do. We'll have to come up with creative new ways of experiencing things together. But yeah, I've gone to the theater a few times, and most of the theaters are still doing limited seating, which again makes planning and figuring out budgets and things very, very hard. And music events, we're still in the sort of going outside as far as cultural events. We're big walkers too, so walking and kayaking and things. But as far as cultural events go, yeah, I'm still pretty timid.
Well, just because it's in my mind for tomorrow night for me, and you're a theater guy, I'm going to see Hedda Gabler here on Friday night. So gonna risk the enclosed space for some drama and Ibsen's play, which I'm a fan of his work. So anyway.
Our audience came back fast. I mean, I was worried that we wouldn't sell tickets to this last show, and we sold out. Not the first two shows, but after that, we sold. It was a limited house, but people came in droves. So maybe I'm just chicken. I don't know.
Well, I can sense there is a fever. People want to get out and get to things. It's a little bit easier here because maybe been easier to be outside where I am, but anyway, so we have maybe about, like, I'd like to keep this to close to 90 minutes, and we're closing in on that. I just have a couple of.
Laureen didn't get to speak, Stephen.
I'm sorry, did I bypass you, Laureen? I think you addressed.
I think I talked about going out for coffee.
Going out for coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did not neglect Laureen there.
Yes, yesterday I drove to Shaunavon to go out for coffee.
Whoa. Wow. Even with the price of gas.
Yeah, you live in Val Marie, you can't really think about the price of gas, so you'd never be able to leave, not only in the spring, not only in the winter, but ever. So
yeah.
Well, there's a nice restaurant in Shaunavon, a really beautiful, good eating restaurant.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're all getting out some. So there's about 7 minutes or so left, and I actually have just a couple of things that I wanted to see if I could just touch on. And one of them relates, and I don't think we have time for elaborate answers, but one of them relates to what we were talking about earlier about artists' income, and that is, when COVID first hit there, and then the CERB got rolled out and such, I heard some chatter, about guaranteed annual income for artists. It suddenly seemed to rise into visibility in a way, and I just wondered, like, how can we? Is there any way we can ever make that happen? Fire anybody. I don't know if you have a thought about that. I'd be interested in hearing it.
I don't know why we're not doing guaranteed minimum income for everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes so much sense in every way. It's another of those things where you go, I've never heard an argument that makes any sense to not do it. And it's the same with artists. I mean, but for everyone. I mean, it's the people, every trial that's happened worked incredibly well. So there are forces at work that obviously don't want it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's obviously true, because it's not the first time the conversation has risen up. I don't know.
I'm always a little wary of. I'm with Angus on this. I think everybody ought to have a minimum annual income, and it shouldn't be set at a impossible to live on minimum either. It's not that the money isn't there, but I'm always a little wary of conversations about minimum annual income for artists, because the idea of proof bothers me a bit. You would have to in some way or other prove whether you were an artist or a professional artist. I wrote the bylaws for Carfax, Saskatchewan when it incorporated, and I used the term practicing rather than professional. But then the people who control the money would say, but everyone will say they're an artist. So I think just give it to everybody.
Yeah, it would perhaps be the economic stimulus we're going to need. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have a comment there, Louise, on that, or no? Okay, I'm going to just touch on one more thing before we wrap up. Maybe we can have concise thought from each of you on this. And this actually is going to turn up in the written piece that I've done as I think the final COVID piece for the Arts Alliance. Thank you, Arts Alliance, for letting me dive deeply into that whole subject. But there was an article in the Globe and Mail a couple of weekends ago by Kieran Delamont, and he made a claim that arts are as essential as any energy form for the well-being of society, claiming that this is especially true as we emerge from COVID and its isolations, changes, and stresses. He's saying that arts are, I'm assuming Kieran is a he, I'm not quite sure, that this person is saying that arts are essential to the healing process as we come out of COVID. I'm wondering how those comments resonate with you, and perhaps Louise, start with you.
Can you start with somebody so I can?
Sure.
Somebody else.
One of you want to jump in, Angus or Laureen?
Angus, you do a public facing kind of art.
Nobody wants to.
I always kind of have trouble with talking about the arts like they're separate from everything else. They're separate from all the other parts of life. The creative things that we all do and the way that we respond to life by making and creating are, of course, central to healing of anything. But I hope one of the things that we're, in this new sea change, this idea that arts is over here and science is over here and language, and we're very good at separating everything. And I agree with Laureen that sort of, how do you define an artist? How do you separate the artist from everybody else? And that's, so I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. Yes, we have to respond creatively, write things, make things, paint things, dance things. That is that's how we heal everything in a way. I'm not sure that's a sensible answer, but it's the only way to respond to crisis, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that everybody is an artist in their own way. A person who's a lawyer is constantly thinking, thought, and trying to create on how to, enter somebody's psyche to get their answer back. So it's a different creative process. And so to me, everybody has the capacity to be a conduit for the great mystery. I mean, that's what we're doing right now, because thought is outside of us. It really, really is. We think it's inside of us, and yes, we're the conduits of that thought. So that's just my take on it, is everybody has that capacity.
And I agree with both of you. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of separating the arts from the rest of the world. I can't bring myself to believe that someone who enjoys looking, or someone who enjoys painting as a hobby, or goes to their writing group once a month, is of less value than the thing we call the arts. And as Angus said, and Louise, you can't take it outside yourself and have any kind of healing at all. It has to be part of the humanity of us all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think perhaps they're good notes to end on, and something to think about. We certainly hope that in whatever way in the next while that with the season opening up and people being able to go for coffee or go to the theater or go to music, we hope that has a positive effect. And also for people to be able to return to whatever creative work that they do, and in a perhaps a more social context. I think that's what we all kind of hope for, so we can move out of the isolation that many of us have had wherever we live, cities, small communities, all by ourselves in the woods. I hope that this time is positive for everyone, and that we don't have to go back into lockdown mode and all of that. I'm going to initiate, I guess, the closing of this session, but I want to thank you, Laureen, Angus, and Louise, for taking part in this discussion today. I know it took some of your time and some advanced thinking and some reflection on your own practices, but I really appreciate your willingness to be involved in the conversation. I also want to thank the Saskatchewan Arts Alliance for all of their attention actually to what artists have been going through in the last couple of years, and also for sponsoring this event. Thank you, Jessica Reese, for all your communication along the way, Em for the behind the scenes work today. Thank everyone for tuning in and posting some comments. I've looked at some of them. I'll look at the rest when we're done. And I hope we'll all attend to the work of Laureen and Louise and Angus and all the other artists and cultural workers and makers who are out there. And I hope that we all get outside or out of our houses to absorb the work of the myriad artists who are at work in Saskatchewan and beyond, as our summer days allow us to do. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Laureen and Louise and Steve. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks,
And
you all.
thank you to our interpreters. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Steve, for being moderating, and everybody for the contribution. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, bye.